One thing we're not going to do this year is put ourselves through unnecessary stress, anxiety, and drama. And what these things have in common is a lot of the times we create it in our own heads. And the no bullshit way of fixing it is to just snap out of it and take control of our own reality. Hi there, Lola here, back with another video for you. I've done the research so you don't have to. Today's topic might just save you from a whole lot of unnecessary headache. We're diving into the world of cyberchondria and the dangers of self-diagnosing with Dr. Google. So grab a notepad because you're gonna want to remember these insights. All right, let's kick things off by defining exactly what cyberchondria is. When I initially had the idea for this video, I didn't even know that this term existed. I was feeling extremely sleepy and just flat out lethargic, and this went on for a few days. And naturally, I reached for my phone and I started Googling my symptoms, okay? And I went down the rabbit hole of Googling and research. If you know me in real life, you know that I'm always researching stuff. But oh my gosh, Lola, not everything needs to be researched, because 2 days later I got my period, and all that research that I was doing on my phone had me convinced that I was chronically depressed. Say what now? Don't get me wrong, there are people who actually struggle through these things, but unless you are actually diagnosed by a medical professional, it's best to steer clear from diagnosing yourself. Cyberchondria is a term that's used to describe the excessive anxiety and fear related to medical conditions that people experience after searching symptoms online. It's basically when you turn to Google for a simple headache and suddenly you find yourself convinced that you have a rare, life-threatening disease. I know that sounds familiar because we've all done this before. You're not crazy for doing this, and it's a trap that we all habitually fall into every now and then. Research suggests that our brain is wired to see patterns in everything. Spotting familiar shapes or faces and random things is just our brain doing its thing. Now that we've all agreed that we're guilty of doing this, we're gonna get started with what I'd like to call Cyberchondriac Anonymous, and we're gonna talk about the dangers of self-diagnosing with Dr. Google. The first obvious one is misdiagnosis, which is a significant danger. I mean, even people who go and see an actual physician get misdiagnosed talk less of you just casually sitting in your bedroom scrolling through Google, convinced that you have an illness that you most likely don't have. Remember, Google is a search engine, not a doctor. It can't assess your unique medical history, your physical condition. It doesn't know any surgeries you had, any medications you're currently on. Relying on it can lead to incorrect conclusions, potentially causing unnecessary panic or causing you to neglect a real issue. Misdiagnosing yourself can also lead you to start feeling cues that aren't even there. You know, it's like what they call it, confirmation bias. When you Google stuff and you're like, oh, you know, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. You know, your brain starts to put patterns and starts to make sense of things that are probably not even true. When you go and see an actual doctor, you're now explaining your condition based on the symptoms that Google told you, which is not helpful, because while medical professionals can do their due diligence and tests, a huge part of getting medically diagnosed in most cases is based on patients self-reporting how they're currently feeling. And so if you're communicating to your doctor that you're feeling a certain way or not a certain way based on what you saw online, that could really affect how the medical professional diagnoses you, and you may not end up treating what it is that you actually need to treat. Next is anxiety and stress, and this goes without saying. Self-diagnosing often leads to heightened anxiety and stress. You research something mild, like maybe your heart's beating fast, or you know, whatever the case is, you were running and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have a chest pain, and you're researching that, and soon you convince yourself that you're having a heart attack. The more you read, the more anxious you become, making your heart race even faster. Next thing you know, you're at the ER only to find out that it was just gas or indigestion. The information you find online can be overwhelming, and worst case scenarios tend to dominate the search results, feeding your worries even further. And if you're an avid researcher like me, you don't stop at Google. No, you dive into the trenches of like Reddit and Quora, and you find yourself in these forums with thousands of people also sharing their experiences, which can be helpful depending on the situation. But if it's something that you've never been medically diagnosed with in the past, the best way to avoid that unnecessary anxiety and stress is to exert some self-control and not do it. At least wait until you've gone and consulted with an actual medical professional and gotten some accurate diagnosis based on your specific states and stats, and then you can now go and do some more research when they've told you like, okay, you could have this or whatever. Not just throwing the search term in the dark and freaking out when Google tells you you're gonna die. Yeah, not funny. Been there, done that. So, how can you avoid falling into the cyberchondria trap while still using the internet for health-related information? Use trusted sources. So, stick to reliable sources like WebMD, Mayo Clinic, even a lot of these health journals out there. They still are constantly fact-checking and, reviewing their site to make sure that they're providing accurate evidence-based information. So take it with a grain of salt and still follow up with your medical practitioner. Consult a professional. If you're genuinely concerned about your health, consult with your healthcare professional, your PCP, whoever you go to with your health concerns, because they have the expertise and the tools to properly assess your condition. You can't just sit there like I do sometimes on the couch in my fluffy slippers and my, pink robe with cucumbers on my eyes, Googling. Like, that's not gonna fix your problem. You need to get dressed or, make a phone call, schedule an appointment, and go see a doctor. Limit your research. Avoid going down the rabbit hole of endless medical articles and forums. Set a time limit for your research and only trust information from reputable sources. I have a bad habit of going down the rabbit hole of Reddit. Google is one thing, but if you Google anything and okay, here's a hack. Don't tell anyone. If you Google anything and add Reddit to the end of your search term, boom, you've discovered a whole new world of anonymous insights, and it's so easy to get drowned in all that noise. Now, granted, a lot of the times they're experiences shared by real people and they matter, but it doesn't really apply to you. At least you don't know at the time when you're Googling your symptoms. So the best thing to do is just limit whatever search you're making and don't fall into that endless spiral like we all tend to do every now and then. Build self-awareness. And I just had to throw this one in there, even though the previous point kind of touched on this a little bit. Self-awareness is so important. Pay attention to your body, love yourself, and learn to strengthen that muscle called intuition, where you know what your routine is, you're in tune with your body, and you're able to really discern when something doesn't feel right. You don't have to Google it before common sense tells you like, oh, maybe you're feeling shitty because you've only been getting 4 hours of sleep every night. Or maybe your gut doesn't feel right because you've been eating junk food for the past week. So building self-awareness is a huge part of self-love, and that's not something that Google or even medical professionals can help you with. You have to do the work on yourself, you have to do it by yourself, and you have to do it for yourself. And that, my dears, is called growth. 10 over 10 would recommend. So in conclusion, while the internet is a treasure trove of information, you're watching this video on the internet right now, it's essential to learn to use it responsibly. I know we tell this to our kids, but even as grown-ups, we need to also remind ourselves to be mindful of the kind of content that we consume and, how we disseminate information, how we share information, and how we apply it to our daily lives. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you stay subscribed if you are subscribed, and subscribe if you have not subscribed. We have a good time on this channel, and I don't want you to miss out. Definitely share if you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!